From Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Institute for Reforming Government, and City Forward Collective.
All right, thank you, Chairman Jagler, Chairman Kitchens, and the members of the Senate and Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Will Flanders. I'm the Research Director at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. We've all probably seen the "This is fine" meme, a cartoon image of a dog sitting in a room on fire, and we even blew our budget with an actual, color version of the image here. Either blissfully ignorant or willingly ignoring what's going on around them. For far too long, this image has also characterized the DPI's approach to public education patterns in the state. While the new standards I'm here to discuss today really don't make things much worse, they continue a pattern of gaslighting families on the state of education in Wisconsin today. Accountability measures in public education are very important because they represent one of the only objective ways parents, taxpayers, and concerned citizens can get a handle on how well local schools are achieving their primary objective of educating children. Parents trust that when the state puts forward a set of accountability ratings, those ratings reflect reality, not a political calculation. We must therefore be especially weary of the report card standard setting process we're discussing here today because of the efforts we've talked about in the earlier parts of this hearing to blur, soften, or outright manipulate these objective measures in the past. If the accountability measures become nothing more than political tools, then they fail in their essential role of telling the truth about school performance and demanding improvement where it's needed most. As we've already discussed today, and there was some questions earlier about how can the ACT scores remain flat while the proficiency rating shot up. We heard a lot of jargon from DPI sort of trying to explain it, but the bottom line is there was effectively an 8 to 10% increase in proficiency with no actual change in student achievement in the state of Wisconsin. They simply changed the measuring stick, no matter what jargon is used to describe it. In other words, nothing changed in our classrooms, but suddenly test scores look better on paper. This kind of manipulation may provide short-term political cover, but it does nothing to resolve the real challenges that are faced in Wisconsin education today. Even states like Mississippi and Louisiana, once derided as low performers nationally, now surpass Wisconsin on the NAEP in fourth grade reading. And it's not just that Wisconsin has stagnated while others have improved, we've actually declined. At the same time, Wisconsin parents are being told to ignore the evidence in front of their faces and simply believe that everything is fine. That's not only misleading, but it's an insult to families who can see firsthand that their children are not being properly prepared for college or the careers of tomorrow, like we've also heard discussion of earlier. DPI's lowering of the Ford exam standards likely necessitated the changes to the report card that we're discussing today, but the standards that DPI has developed do little more than perpetuate an accountability system that fails to hold chronically underperforming schools and districts accountable. Schools that have failed generations of kids can still emerge from this process with ratings that suggest to parents and taxpayers they're on solid footing. This is not transparency, it's misdirection. And we've already seen from DPI, I believe you guys had a handout up there that sort of went through some of this data, so I won't go through it in detail and repeat it here. But essentially what we've seen is that the new scores, based on the standard setting materials that have been provided so far, don't change much. They move a few schools up a few categories, but essentially we're maintaining the status quo and pushing a few schools out of the meets expectations category into some of the higher categories. And also provide in the handout a sort of figure that shows the distribution under the old and new standards, though I know, as DPI mentioned, there could be some remaining changes that happen as they go through this process in the next few weeks. While it's reasonable that the middle category, the meets expectation, should capture the largest number of schools under a roughly normal distribution of performance, it's problematic that the category swallowed up the clear majority of schools under the old system. This had the effect of blurring distinctions and reducing clarity for parents, and will apparently continue to do so under the new standards. It paints a rosier picture of performance than the data justifies, giving taxpayers and families a false sense of security. And most troubling of all, the new report card maintains this pattern of never classifying a single school district, at least according to what we've seen so far, and very few individual schools in the entire states in the lowest category of performance. This result defies reality. Even after the artificial inflation of proficiency that DPI engineered last year, the state still has 7 school districts where fewer than 30% of students are meeting expectations in reading. Along with the often cited districts like Milwaukee and Beloit, this also includes the Menominee Indian School District, where only 10.9% of students are meeting expectations. These are catastrophic outcomes by any measure. Yet under both the current and new systems, these districts are all rated at least 2 stars. Milwaukee made it to 3 stars under last year's report card, suggesting to parents that these are functioning at an acceptable level. Again, it's not just misleading, it's a failure of the accountability system. The standard setting here then is relatively unremarkable. It maintains the status quo of where we have been on accountability in Wisconsin for more than a decade. Parents and families will remain uninformed about how their kids are doing in school, and schools and districts will continue to be able to perpetuate lies about their performance based on a faulty system. What is needed is a radical transformation of the accountability system. Maintaining stability is good, but since we've already lost the ability to compare between years, we think, creating some larger changes would be better. Maybe an A through F system where we have a distribution of schools that some are actually identified as Fs and failing. But there's not been the political will in the governor's office or the superintendent's office to make that happen at this point. At the end of the day, an accountability system exists to ensure that schools serve students, not the other way around. When the system is designed to avoid embarrassment for adults in charge rather than to highlight the real challenges facing our children, it is the students who pay the price. DPI's modest changes perpetuate that path where chronic underperformance is normalized, parents are lulled into complacency, and the pressure for real reform is relieved. We need a system that tells the truth, identifies failure, and drives real improvement. Anything less is a betrayal of our kids. Thank you again for the chance to speak.
Thank you.